name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Chaotic Riffs Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriffs.com. And once again, tonight our special guest is singer Jim Crean. And last week we talked to Jim about his all-new studio album, London Fog. And today we're going to be talking in detail about his other CD that he's releasing along with London Fog called Get You Covered, which is a great cover CD. And welcome back, Joe. Welcome back, Jim. How you doing today?
Good, Jay. How are you?
I'm great. Now, a great choice of CDs. I mean, right off the bat, just to tell people, like I said, you recently put out this London Fog album, and on London Fog we're getting 14 great tracks on there, and then on the Gotcha Cover CD that we're talking about, we're getting 16 great cover tunes. So that's really a lot of stuff that you're giving to the fans here. Now, another thing I love about Gotcha Cover, besides being great cover tunes, you really went the gamut here as far as I was impressed with the artists you covered. I mean, with everybody from like Sabotage to White Lion, the Scorpions, Melisa Ethridge, Rico Casca. Just the list goes on. Now, track one, Hail of a Mountain King. That of course is a great Sabotage tune. Talk a little bit about your choice to cover that and how you first became a Sabotage fan.
Am I a Sabotage fan?
Yeah. That's what I'm asking. Kind of, talk a little bit about your choice to cover that tune, and
Yeah, well, of course I'm a Sabotage fan. They were one of the coolest bands to come out in the late '80s, early '90s. They were just, they had everything. They had power, great vocalists, great riffs. It was the '80s hair stuff was just kind of getting saturated, and these guys came out and just really, turned it on and turned it up. So I just thought they were great. There was a fresh breath of air.
They predated a lot of those power metal bands. And I mean, the thing about Sabotage, I mean, I mean, when I first saw the logo, just the logo alone, it really catches your eye. It is so, everything with Sabotage was so over the top. I mean, I love the singer, John Olivier, and his brother Chris was a great guitar player who died tragically young.
Yeah. I mean, just everything about it. They were a great band, and I was lucky enough in the early '90s. I was in a band, and we got to do a couple shows with them. So, and they were just really cool guys, down to earth guys, and it was a club show, so they were playing clubs. And
oh wow! I could just imagine seeing a show like that in the club. That must have been something. And then
that album came out too. It was like right around that time, and it was just really cool.
And again, the thing about Sabotage is they were a great metal band in the sense, from time to time they still get together and like play some of the European festivals every couple of years. But they're one of those bands that they really should have been much bigger than they were.
Yeah, I mean they were pretty big though. I mean, they had that. The next wave came when they got that different singer and they did that Edge of Thorns. That's when they got they kind of found their way.
Yeah,
but I like the original version, with John.
Yeah. And now track 2 is kind of what I'm talking about here. Like the way I do now, not having ever heard this tune before, I really dug it, and then I was really surprised when I read the writing credit as Melisa Ethridge. But you know what? Like kind of what we were talking about before, Jim. To me, a good song is a good song. It doesn't matter if you're doing an Elvis Presley tune, a Melisa Ethridge tune. If you can get down with the tune, that's all that matters.
A great song. I mean, Melisa Ethridge is an amazing songwriter. I mean, and when I was watching one night, I forget what it was like. It was like in concert or something like that. With Melissa was on there, and it was really cool because she had Tommy Lee come out and sit in with them. And I thought, wow, how cool is that? And then the way they did it, they kind of did a rock version. So I went downstairs and I started messing around with my guitar in my studio, and it started coming together. And then I sent it over to Steph, and Steph just did an amazing job on it.
And again, I think the great thing about doing a track like this, Jim, is Melisa Ethridge. She's one of those artists that kind of crosses over. She's a little bit country, a little bit rock, and she had her MTV hits and stuff back in the day. And I also dig the fact that you chose to cover a track that, for example, wasn't one of the big MTV hits, but one of those songs that maybe a lot of people hadn't heard before.
It was a cool tune. It's a great song, and it's actually one of my favorites on the record, to be honest with you.
And see, that's the cool thing to me about when people do cover albums like this is there are a lot of times when, like for me, I've never heard that song before, and so like after hearing your song, I thought, okay, I'll go check out the original kind of version that Melisa did, and I thought, wow. So you're kind of also introducing people, kind of what you do with Hair Nation. You introduce people to maybe stuff they've never heard before.
Yeah, I mean, ironically enough, we were talking with Hair Nation that we want to start doing some of these songs on the record because we like the way we did them. So
yeah, so that kind of leads me to the next question, which is this: now you're on tour currently, to promote these CDs. Now, do you think you're more likely to cover the stuff on Gotcha Covered with Hair Nation, or is there a chance you could throw it into a solo set as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan. I mean, we're working on the deal right now where we're going to do going a mini run with a national band, and it's going to be, we're only getting a 45-minute set, but we'll be direct support. And with that being said, it'll probably just be mostly the originals because I want to showcase those songs.
Of course.
But we'll maybe do, we do Give Me Shelter by the Stones as an encore.
Wow.
And I didn't do it on this record. I wish I would have actually because we do such an amazing job on it.
Uh-huh.
But for some reason we just didn't do it. Because we had 16 songs, so we just didn't want to put too many songs on it. Because then it becomes white noise if you put too many songs on.
But the Stones have been covered by so many people. I mean, for a fact, they've been around so many years. They got so many great tunes. I'll give you an example. Like the band, the Dead Daisies. Okay, on their latest CD, they covered a song called "Bitch," which is a lot heavier than what a typical Stone song would be. And I'd heard it for the first time when I went back and listened to the original Stones version, and I was quite impressed. Man, this has got to be the heaviest thing the Stones have ever put out. And then another song I love by the Stones is called Dead Flowers. I've heard a couple people cover Poison and Gilby Clarke. And then I go back and listen to the original Stones version, and it was a drastically different song, almost like a swampy country song. And so I think, wow, it's cool what these other artists have done with this song, kind of made it their own.
Yeah. And a lot of bands do that, and it's cool, and I love that when bands do that. I love when bands take a cover song and use their own sound, and like we were talking once before with the Hair Nation project, that we don't try and sound like the bands, we just do it our own way. And I love when bands do that because wouldn't you just rather hear the real band doing it?
Yeah, and I would think too when you're like when you're in a cover band and you're covering various artists, it's going to be very hard to kind of sound the same. Like if you're covering a Skid Row song and a Motley Crue song, an Ozzy song, it's going to be hard to sound the same on every tune. So I think it's cool that you do it that way because then you're kind of doing your version or your take.
Yeah, for sure.
And then another great choice that you covered here. I love the song "The Last Time," of course, by Badlands. That's on the very first Badlands album, featuring the late great Ray Gillen.
Yeah, one of my favorite singers, man. Ray was great. Yeah, he was just, he was weird because his choice of phrasing and notes was just definitely different. He was really. He went sharp a lot and things like that, and it fit in the music so well. Yeah. And he had a cool voice, man. I mean, Ray, and he had a great look about himself, and just a great, cool frontman. Another guy who went way too early.
That first Badlands album is one of my all-time favorites, and for several years it has been out of print. I think if you go online, you can still find it. It's very hard to find, but that. Of those three Badlands albums, that was my all-time favorite. But the thing about Ray Gillen, like you're saying, he was such a versatile, vocalist. I mean, he had very different styles. But if you go back and you check out that debut album they put out, I mean, it featured Eric Singer before he was in Kiss, of course, Jakey Lee, and they were just that debut album. That's one of the best debuts I've ever seen, and it's really stood the test of time. But that first album they put out, it had a real kind of bluesy feel to it.
Yeah, great stuff, man.
And Ray Gillen, very sad, like I said, passed away way too, young. But he Badlands was like what he is mostly remembered for. I mean, he was briefly in Black Sabbath, although they never put out any recorded material with him. But that's what he's remembered for, and I think it's cool that you kind of do this tribute to him and the band, because a lot of people, when they think of Badlands, they think of the single like "Dreams in the Dark," which kind of was all over MTV and radio, but this was one of those lost kind of golden gems on that album that a lot of people haven't heard.
Yeah, it was one of those songs where Badlands was at the end of it all, and it's just that song came out, the video came out, and it was just a great song. I mean, it's such a great song. And
of course, the next track, "Lonely Nights," you can't really go wrong with the Bryan Adams tune. I mean, to me, he's always been. Although he's not much of a metal or hard rock guy, but he is great. He's always been one of my favorite songwriters, and oddly enough, a lot of people may not have known he was a co-writer on, I think, 3 of the tunes on Kiss's "Creatures of the Night" album.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
So he does kind of have a hard rock connection there, but Bryan Adams, you just can never go wrong with him. Are you much of a Bryan Adams fan?
No, not at all. But that song, I just remember when it came out before. It was obviously before Bryan really made it. Yeah. And Bryan had the long hair, and it was cool. I was kind of a rocker guy. Yeah. And I always thought this is a hit. And then it went nowhere. And because I'm from Buffalo, New York, which is right by Canada. Yeah. So he came out with that, and he's Canadian. So they were playing it in our market, and it just fizzled out. And I was like, what a great song! That just got lost. And then he came out with that "Cuts Like a Knife" and all that stuff, and became a megastar. And I always thought, man, that was his best song was "Lonely Nights." Yeah, so when we were putting this thing together, I thought that'd be great to bring that song back.
And then
a lot of people have never heard it.
Yeah, and I also love the song "Bye Bye Love." Now, I seen Rick Ocasek's a songwriter on there. Was that a Cars tune or a Rick Ocasek tune?
No, it's a Cars song, and it's sung by Benjamin Orr, who, in my opinion, was one of the coolest rockers, man. He was their bass player, but he sang a lot of songs. Like he sung "Drive," that song "Drive." He sang, "Bye Bye Love." He sang a lot of the cooler songs. Benjamin was just, look him up. I mean, he's cool dude. I mean, and unfortunately he died young too, but he just had a cool vibe about him. So I always thought that was a great song, and I love the way he sang that. And it's just so different,
Yeah, and I was hoping you could educate me on "Fade Into You," because that's another one of my favorite tracks on the Gotcha Covered CD here, and I'm not too familiar about the history of that song.
Which one?
"Fade Into You."
Oh, that's a Mazzy Star song. The original is like a real kind of droning rock song. Not rock song, I mean like acoustic folk song. Okay, yeah. And I heard that one day, and I was just like, well, that would be cool to make that heavier. And so that's what we did. And honestly, that's probably my least favorite on the record. Yeah. After we recorded it and it came out, I really started deciding, this one I don't know if it really works. It's one of those, and I hate to say it because it's my record, but it's one of those songs that you maybe want to fast forward, unfortunately. And I wish it wasn't, because it's a cool song. Yeah, well, it's just
that's kind of, I guess,
mundane after a while.
Your feeling of living it with it, but what I will say that's cool about that, even though you kind of feel that way towards the track yourself, is like for me, the reason I ask again is a lot of these tunes I've heard of before, but and even I'm looking on the song right, I'm not sure who this is, or. So now you tell me kind of Mazzy Star. I could, if I wanted to, go back and kind of see who they are. But see, that's the cool thing about doing a cover CD like this. There are tracks on here maybe like that, and you're not as big of a fan, but other people go and maybe check out the original artist of original tunes. Oh wow, well I've never even heard of Mazzy Star. I have no idea who they are. But thanks, Jim, for turning me on.
Yeah, and I should have said that, because I like our version. It's great.
Yeah.
I love our version.
Well, it's like anything, Jim. People that get, for example, London Fog or even Gotcha Covered, what we're talking about, they're going to have their favorite or their least favorite tracks on any given album. So that's, and you're an artist, and you've had to live with these tunes for a while, in the making of it. So I could understand maybe you say, well, I got tired of hearing this or whatever, but that's just everybody's experience,
Yeah.
And then, another thing is then you got the Scorpions tune, "Falling in Love." Now, Jim, of course, everybody, when they think of a Scorpion, they think of maybe like Rocky Like a Hurricane, The Zoo, all those great MTV hits, But and I actually remember hearing the song, but it's been quite a while, and it kind of took me back. Oh wow, yeah, I remember hearing that song years ago, but I kind of forgot about it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That song came out in 1980, off the Animal Magnetism album. And honestly, when I wanted to do a Scorpion song, because that album, Animal Magnetism, was the biggest influence of my life. I was into a lot of albums like the Aerosmith, Draw the Line, all that, but Animal Magnetism, from first song to last song, was my that's me, that's the album. And so it was hard picking a song after. I was going to do Lady Starlight, I was going to do Make It Real, I was going to do Only a Man, I was going to do a lot of different songs off it. And then I said, well, the one that was really big besides this Zoo was Falling in Love, and that was one of the first songs I learned to play on my guitar. That's why I said, I'm going to bring that into it. And I thought it came out great. The guitar player I have on there is Artie Kalenda, an amazing guitar player from New York.
Wow.
He just destroyed on the album. He was just great. To give you a lowdown on I'm sorry, you keep going with what your interview.
No, go on. This is your album, so please feel free to. I'm kind of interested in hearing what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna give a shout out to all the great players on it, because I like to do that, because these guys all work so hard, and all these guys are so humble and great guys, and all friends of mine.
Yeah.
But Steph Hond, again, I always talk about him in my interviews, but man, he's an unknown gem. He's so great. He's so great. The world should be embracing this guy. He's that great of a guitar player. Bass player, he played bass on it, keyboards on it. He's great. Art Kalenda, who I just got done saying is an amazing guitar player, played on it. Eric Labelli, he's a French drummer, amazing.
Yeah.
Dave Contrello, my buddy Dave, he's a session player. And Robbie Robson played bass on this as well, who's an amazing bass player from Canada, Toronto. So all these guys had played on it, and everything was produced by Steve Major, who's amazing. The artworks were done by Jeffrey DeBurry, and the photographs were done by Conley Mastrocovo. So, and executive produced by Steve Sussman, who's amazing, and runs the label and does a great job. So that's out of the way. But I wanted to give all those guys.
I think that's cool. I think
they're
that's
all
cool.
amazing, and I love them all. So let's get back to talking about the record.
I think that's cool that you do that, Jim, because there's so many bands and artists that don't don't tip the hat to one another. I've heard, another band I've always loved is like Creedence Clearwater Revival, but it's funny, two of the guys were brothers and they all hated each other, and I heard the main guy, John Fogert, he's talked over years in interviews like, they call those Creedence songs. No, I wrote all those tunes. I was the guy with all the, talent, and you're a talented guy and stuff, but, it takes everybody in the band to kind of put their piece, and that's how I've always kind of felt. So I think it's cool that you give, dues to the guys that are playing on the album and in your band,
Well, it's a band. It's not an It's look what I did. It's not that. It's look what we did. And it's a band, and it's songs, and it's at the end of the day, it's really about the music. And even with the Velvet Crush, the London Fog album, man, there's so many great musicians on that album that the album wouldn't be half as good as it is without all those great players. And I realized that, and I know that. That's why everybody was hand selected, and that's why everybody who did this record was hand selected. So let's get back to the album. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. And the other thing, you kind of slipped there and said Velvet Crush. Going back to that album for a minute, can you believe it's been that many years since that came out? And the reason I'm asking that is, you used to put out this greatest hits album before all this, and kind of a reminder of, what came before, because a lot of people, that know who Jim Crean is just from the last two albums, and then aren't even aware of all that stuff that came before. But can you believe that you've, been doing the solo thing as long as you have?
I've been doing music since
13. You said,
13. But I did solo. I started doing my solo career in 1991.
Wow.
That's when like the whole hair band thing was kind of coming to a close, and I was in tons of working bands throughout the 80s. Touring up and down the coast, East Coast, and Canada, I did that whole thing for years, and was in some pretty popular bands at that time. And then once that the grunge thing happened, we had two choices. We could all, kind of fade away, which a lot of guys did, or you could, you become a grunge guy, which some guys did, and it's all great, or you can just become a solo artist, which I did. And then I said, you know what, I'm just going to do stuff now, write songs that I want to play and I like to do, and that's what I did. So I released my first solo album in '91, and it was an EP. And it was cool, and we did like an MTV. We did a video for MTV.
Wow.
And there was a contest that was being run for MTV of unsigned bands. So what happened was we submitted everybody submitted videos or whatever, and the winning video would appear on MTV. I believe they gave you a month's worth of viewing, and then you got a 6-day tour with Aerosmith.
Wow.
And small deal with Island Records. So that's kind of what the prize was, and I made it all the way to the finals.
Wow.
And at the time, Kelly Ripka was a VJ, so
wow.
Yeah, she was young. We were all young.
Yeah.
And so it was cool to go to New York City and all that, and thinking I got a shot. And I went up against Fuel.
Wow.
The band Fuel.
Yeah.
And they were. I give it to them, man. Their music was in the now.
Yeah.
The songs were cool. They all look cool. They had the modern look with the short haircuts and all the flannels and all that shit. And whereas we were still, wearing the scarves and the hair all teased up, and we were trying to find our way, I guess. And you can find a video on YouTube and all that. And we were still trying to do the '80s look because that's what we knew. That's what was happening. It wasn't called the '80s look because it was the look.
But that's why I think you're still. That's why I think you're still so relevant today, because there were established acts. Great example is like Motley Crue. If you look at every Motley Crue album, they kind of have a different look. But I remember even going back to like '97 when Vince Neil first came back to the band, and they put out that Generation Swine. It's almost like Motley Crue goes industrial, kind of sounding like 9 Inch Nails. And that
didn't work for him. I don't think it worked for him when he did that.
You know why? You know why it didn't work? Because that's not who they were trying to kind of be the flavor of a month or go with what was popular at the time, rather than staying true to their sound, which is kind of what you and a lot of other artists I like did. They kind of just stayed true to who they are.
Well, one band that it did work for is Kiss. That's the one band that changed for the better. That was pretty much Kiss did a great job, and I hate to always keep going to Kiss because I know that your show is really Kiss orientated, but it fits in. Kiss really did a cool job when they did Revenge. They had the dark leathers and they looked cool, and they had that dark. Gene had the beard and
got Bob Ezrin back, and
Bob Ezrin back, and they had it.
It sounded like Destroyer Part 2 to me. You know what I mean?
Well, listen, it saved them. Everybody always says, Vinnie Vincent saved Kiss. You know the Vinnie Vincent story, so I'm not going to go there.
Well, I'm glad. I have to ask you about that because
I don't want to go in there.
The only thing I do want to ask about Vinnie Vincent while we're talking about the cover album is I got to tell you, Jim. I think that version of his song that you put out with the song you put out, Vinnie Vincent cover. I forget what. I'm slipping right now, but you did a Vinnie Vincent song when you were going to do that show with him, and I just tell you, man, your version is great.
That song, I can't remember.
Back on the Streets. That's it.
I did a couple. I did that one, and I did like 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember, but Boys Are Gonna Rock. We did that one. Back in the Streets, and there was another one too. A good one, a good song. He's a great.
See, that's what I didn't understand about the guy.
As naughty as Vinnie Vincent is, he's a great songwriter, man.
He screwed himself over professionally, but I never understood why, because he can write great songs. I mean, there's another song of his that I love that Chris actually covered, like on his 1982 solo album called Tears. I've actually heard of Vinnie Vincent demo.
John Waite did that too, right? John Waite did a great job.
John Waite had a bigger hit with it, but see, I never understood why he didn't just.
It's great, man.
Yeah, I never understood why if you can't work with people, why you just didn't write. If you can write hit songs, why you don't write songs for other people?
He's great musician, and maybe that's why he's so flaky. I don't know, but let's call it what it is. He's got some. he's got some issues, man.
Yeah, I'll just say this, and end it on this. It's kind of interesting because this guy was away from the public eye for almost 20 years, and he kind of reemerges. And everybody that works with him or knows him says he's really his own worst enemy. But I think he's got, from what I've heard too recently, he's got this manager that's got him convinced that people will show up to these events and pay $500 for a ticket or whatever. And I'm like, who's going to pay $500 to ticket for a guy that hasn't played anything in 20 years?
Well, I mean, not Derek. Don't blame Derek. What are you talking about? The new manager?
I'm talking about Vinny. I'm just talking about, like, he had a birthday bash, and then he has some other event he's advertising for Christmas, wants people to pay, like, $200, $300 for a ticket, and then people are like, well, is he going to show? He showed up for his birthday bash thing, but that's what I'm saying. He's got a manager or something, but it's got him convinced that people are willing to going to show up for these events and pay high prices, but I just don't think it's working.
Well, I mean, Derek, his other manager, the one that recruited me and all that. Derek was top of the line. He was a great guy. He's a great guy. Yeah. Very professional, very courteous. Vinny would have been a great show for him with me, Carmine, and Tony. That thing would have been phenomenal for him, and it would have made him really. I think the Kiss fans are the best in the world, and I've been saying this on all my interviews. Yeah. Kiss fans, there's none better. I mean, they're loyal. They're cool. They spend money. They're really great fans, and Vinny should be only so lucky to have these people. Yeah,
the last thing I'm going to say on the Vinny Vincent subject is this. I totally agree with what you just said, Jim, in the sense that for a guy like Vinny Vincent that hasn't performed or done much of anything in the last 20 years, and then he kind of starts reappearing 20 years later. To come back and, because I know he previously played with Carmine, as I'm sure you know, and, he kind of screwed Carmine over in the past, and Carmine's nice enough to kind of, I guess, refer you and say, hey, okay, Vinny, I'm willing to forget the past and this and that. And that would have been a great comeback. Okay, you got Tony Franklin, you got Jim Crean, you got Carmine. Man, and people were talking actually like, hey, maybe this is a band he's going to put together, go on tour. And they're like, wow, what a comeback. And he ruined it, It's just so sad and pathetic. But, getting back to the Gotcha Covered CD, which is the main topic. Another great tune on here. A lot of people may or may not have known. Cry No More. That's, of course, a Stephen Pearcy tune, but not a Rat tune, an arcade tune.
Yeah, great song. My buddy Johnny Angel wrote it with Stephen Pearcy. Johnny's from, he's from Oswego here. He played in Buffalo a lot with a band called Talus, and Jimmy, really good friend of mine, and he wrote that song, and with Stephen and Freddie Corey from Cinderella, and he played it for me one time, and I loved it before they tracked it, and I thought it was a great song, and then then they did it for Arcade, and then Johnny quit Arcade, and then they still released it on the Arcade album, and I always thought, what a great song, man. Why didn't that ever go anywhere?
Yeah, again, Arcade, especially that first album, I mean, I think that's a great, it still holds the test of time. I mean, if you go back and listen to that, it still sounds just as good as the day it came out. It really.
But again, music was changing at that time, so that great power ballad came out, and at that time they were playing, Teen Spirit. They didn't want to hear it.
I agree a lot with what you're saying. I mean, because I do think if maybe the Arcade album had come out at a different time, or even if it had maybe been on a Rat album or something like that, and they got a chance to get on MTV, maybe. But unfortunately, But
so we redid it, and we did it a lot different actually. But I thought it came up. I'm really happy with that one on the record. So
and it's cool that you're giving love to some of these bands that never really got a fair shake. Another example of that is the song Outlaw. Anybody has know that that was a band, the Scream, featured a lot of great players such as John Corabi, Bruce Boulay, and I think Scott Travis one time was in the band, the drummer
great
from
band.
Judas Priest.
Great band. John Corabi kicked ass. That was right before he joined Motley Crue. They did that album, and then they thought he did such a great job. The crew picked him up, and he joined the crew. Yeah. And that song is just badass. From the start with the riff to the end of the song, That's a really cool tune, and that's a song that would have gone somewhere, but then he joined Motley Crue, and then that whole band just faded. So I think if John would have stayed in the Scream, they would have gotten to where they needed to go, because they were a great band.
Yeah, and besides him, like I said, they the guitar player Bruce Boulez, he's an amazing guitar player. And you know, it's interesting. Like you talk about John being in Motley Crue just for that one album, but you know that album amazingly has stood the test of time. I mean, he started doing these shows a couple years ago, like the 20th anniversary of that album. He was going out and you know he'd actually recorded a live album, kind of him doing the whole album, and people were going to these shows and just loving it. But like at the time, people were like, oh, this guy, he's not Vince Neil, and for whatever reason, it didn't work with John Corabi and Motley Crue. But if you go back and listen to that album, it's still relevant. It still really holds up, and I love what he was doing with the Dead Daisies, and now we're learning he's no longer for Dead Daisies. He's actually been replaced by Glenn Hughes, and I guess he's going to concentrate on his solo career. So that's something.
You know, I'm reading a lot of that stuff, but he didn't get replaced. I knew. I got a couple mutual friends of John, and I knew that John was leaving the Dead Daisies back before summer started.
Yeah, because it was weird. It started kind of coming out, but people weren't really announcing it, and it was like maybe not.
So I read all these people going, "Oh my God, that's terrible that they kick him out." Or they didn't kick him out; he left, and he left on his own. You know, he wanted to leave. He left the band, and I knew about that. Well, way a long time ago, that he was leaving the Daisies, which the Daisies is a great band. I mean, they're one of the bands that are left that are a new band that's still kicking ass.
And you know, the thing about the Dead Daisies is, up until Corabi joined the band, I kind of heard the name, but they didn't really explode until he joined the band, and he's been with them a number of years, and actually as a result of him being in the band, they became more popular. But the other thing I know about the Dead Daisies, that somebody was telling me, like they kind of have their schedule set, that the management runs everything like, okay, well, this is the time of year, but you guys got to start writing. This time of year, you got to be in the studio and recording, so we can have an album out by a certain time. And pretty much the way it's worked in the past, that like one of the drummers, Brian Tishy, when it was time to record the next album, he had other commitments, he couldn't commit, so okay, well, we're gonna have to find a replacement for you. It's kind of like, you know, an NFL team, this band that, you know, if you're able to do it, great. If not, we'll find somebody else. But Glenn Hughes, I think it's smart on their part to go with a guy like Glenn Hughes, because he's a great vocalist. I mean, he's one of the guys, I think, along with Coverdale, that really saved Deep Purple back in the day.
Oh yeah, Glenn's he's a superstar. He's great singer, great bass player. You know.
Yeah, I think it's great that
they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. They're going to make a great album, and it's a great project. I mean, and then John will be fine too. Whatever John does, I think he's doing something already, but he'll be fine. They'll all be fine. And
I'm kind of excited if he concentrates more on his solo career, because I mean, he's really a great all-time vocalist. He can cover. He's like you in the sense that he can cover any various different types of music, so I'm excited to see what's going to come for.
He's a cool dude too, so that makes it even better. You know, my thoughts are in this whole thing. Been doing music my whole life. You could be a great guy, or you could be a decent musician but a great guy, or you could be a great musician and a horrible guy. I take the decent guy with a decent musician, or great guy with a decent musician.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad when you hear these bands.
You gotta work together.
It's very sad when you you know, a lot of fans they're under this notion that people play together and they just love one another and they're constantly hanging out with each other. But I mean, it's sad. I was watching this Motley Crue DVD. It was called The End. It was like the very last show they did in Los Angeles, right before they wrapped up their farewell tour. And Nikki Sixx was talking on the thing about, you know, I've known these guys 35 years, and you know, we used to be best friends, but we don't even hang out. We live like right down the street. I hardly see the guys. I probably I won't see them all that often because we're not going to be touring anymore. It's kind of very sad, but a lot of bands are like that.
Yeah. I mean, every band at that level is like that. It's bizarre. I mean, look at the Black Crowes. They're brothers. They don't even talk. You know.
Yeah, wow.
It's bizarre to me. I mean, I was always in bands where there was so much camaraderie that I never could understand that. And every band I was in, we were like brothers. You know.
Yeah.
And in my Hair Nation band, we love each other. I mean, we love each other. I mean, it's pure. God, I can't say enough. We're like best friends.
So let me ask you, I know you're engaged to Colleen. You were saying. I was curious. Did you meet her like before you guys were playing together? Or,
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. She used to come see my band play, and she was just starting to get into drums. I mean, we're talking 20 years ago or so. She just started getting into it. She was in a all-female band, which was really cool. And they used to open for us, and then she'd come out and watch me play, and then before you know it, we started hanging out, and then became a couple. And then about 10 years ago, she just started getting really good on drums, and the band decided that it was time to make a change, and we brought her in.
Wow. And I bet it's kind of fun to kind of have your better half, always there by your side.
Oh, for sure. She's amazing. I love her. And like I said, I love the two guys in the band, too. The guitar player and bass player. We're like a family. And that's how it's supposed to be, man. It's, have each other's back and just, I don't know.
I got you.
We're getting older here. It's just fighting and all this stuff is just nonsense to me. I just don't have time for that. Yeah.
And I imagine, in talking to you, Jim, the fact that you're so complimentary about your bandmates and you guys get along so well, it does almost seem like the Jim Crean Band is maybe a solo band in name, if you know what I mean, because the fact that you're so complimentary towards all your bandmates and you guys get along so well. I imagine a big reason that the band is called the Jim Crean Band is because you're kind of the guy that everybody knows. Yeah,
that's exactly why. Like when I play with Vinny and Carmine, it's the same deal. Vinny and Carmine and Colleen, we're like family. Me and Vinny and Carmine are like brothers, and they treat Colleen wonderful. And it's such a different vibe when you're with professional people like that are just embracing and they have your back and they're good people. That's what it's about, man. That's what it's about.
Yeah. And going back to that Drum Wars CD, that live one you guys put out a couple years ago. That's kind of where I first came aware of you. And I got to ask, one of the guys that plays on there with you that I just think is an all-time like great guitar player, Ethan Brosh.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Ethan's great, man. He was young at the time when we did that, and he was just coming out, and he's really came into his own. He's a great guy, and he's a great player, and he did a couple. Ironically enough, we only did a couple shows with Ethan, and it was at that time. We did the 2 shows together, maybe 3. I think we did, or 3 or 4. We did about 4 shows with him, but at that time, we didn't know we were going to be recording a live album. We did 2 shows at the Iridium in New York City, Les Paul's place, and they said, we got a mobile unit here. We're gonna record you guys. We're like, okay. Next thing you know, it came out great. We were happy with it, and then we shopped it around, and Cleopatra Records picked us up, which is a great label in LA, and they picked us up, and we released it. And I'm really happy with that album, And then we did the Sinister album too, which is amazing.
Cleopatra, they're one of these great little labels. A lot of people may not be aware of who they are, but a lot of times
Deadline Records,
great
Deadline
compilation albums, and like another artist that they just signed that.
Angel.
Angel. Another one that they have coming out this week is Tom Kiefer. So,
cool.
Yeah, so great little label there.
Well, they're Deadline too. Deadline's another subsidiary, and they like you said, used to put out a lot of those compilations in the '90s. They put all the guys from like Cinderella.
I remember getting like a CD Warrant put out when Janie Lane was still around, and they called it latest and greatest, I guess, to get back some of the rights of their songs. They went in and recorded all new versions of their songs, and they had a few new ones. So you got a little something special from
cool label, man. They treat us really good, and they threw us out on the road with that, and we had a lot of fun. I mean, that was a cool period. That was about 10 years ago already. Well, let's see, 8 years ago, whatever. And but that was cool.
And then another song I wasn't too familiar with before hearing your version is Love Is Like Auction. Kind of give me some background on that song and how you first became aware of it.
Oh, I mean, that's a sweet. I mean, they were one of my first influences in the 70s,
Yeah.
And that was actually a big song in 77 when it came out, 78. So that was a big radio hit. I mean, huge hit. That and Ballroom Blitz and Fox on the Run. Yeah. So we actually recorded Fox on the Run as well. But I decided to put Love Is Like Oxygen on instead. And I always thought that was a great song, and it was a big influence on me. So it just seemed fitting to end the album with that song.
Yeah, and I could understand not wanting to put like two sweet songs on here. But like these extra tunes that you have kind of in the can, do you think there's any chance there might be a volume 2 to this, or even just like, for example, Fox and Run? Do you think that could end up on a future, album?
Who have you been talking to?
Nobody, but a lot of artists. The reason I ask is a lot of people I follow.
You know the inside scoop. Because
not really. The reason I ask is like a lot of artists I follow that they have like Kiss, Ace Frehley. They cover. They record more stuff and end up on the album. They put it in a vault and they save it like maybe for the future. That's why I was asking.
Well, you, my friend, hear it first. Yeah, there's going to be a follow-up to it. It's going to be called Got You Covered Again. And it's going to have all the songs, more songs, great songs that we recorded and that we've already recorded that didn't make this album, and then more songs to be picked.
That's a surprise. I wasn't even aware of it, but how cool is that? Again, like we said, the next thing coming out before that is the live album in November, so really got a lot to look forward to. No shortage of material.
No, and listen, the label I'm on, Visionary Noise Records, Steve Sussman and Michael Jackson, they just been amazing towards me. They're really getting behind me on any idea I come up with and I ask for. We make it happen, and the live album DVD is going to be great. That's already in production right now, putting that together. And then, like I said, then the next thing we're going to do a Got You Covered Again CD. And one thing I did want to add is, I know we did it in our last interview, but the 25 or 624, we did the Chicago song.
Yeah, that's the next thing I was going to ask you about, but go ahead. That's a great track, too.
Well, that's, Steve Sussman, my executive producer on the record, his mother's favorite song was that song. So he asked me if we could do it. Yeah. And at first I was like, well, that doesn't really fit what I'm looking to do. And I thought, well, let's give it a try. Yeah. And we did it, and it came out probably the best song on the record. Yeah. And that goes out to Steve's mom. So I just wanted to kind of give that shout out to dedicate to her, because I guess that was her favorite song. Wow. So, and honestly, it came out the best song.
Yeah, and are you much of a Chicago fan yourself? Because
no, not really.
But I guess from maybe doing this version, you might have a newfound appreciation for.
Oh, I mean, they're amazing musicians, but I just never really listened to Chicago.
I got to admit, it's not my cup of tea. I mean, for anybody listening to this, Chicago, they're one of these bands that they're a lot of their music like features horns and stuff, but it's great. But if you're typically like a hard rock metal fan, like a lot of us listening to this, it might not be your thing. But anybody interested in checking out either Jim's version, or I know on one of his solo albums, Vince Neil, I think back in '95 he covered the same tune. So it's a lot of people love this song for some reason.
Well, Artie Klenda just destroyed that song. The guitar player that played on it, Artie Klenda, he just ripped the cover off that thing. His solo on there is outstanding. And
it's kind of cool that a guy known for doing like hard rock stuff, such as yourself, could do such a great version of that song. And it kind of reminds me of a few years back when I was interviewing Frankie Benelli, the drummer from Quiet Riot. He was telling me, mentioning the Slade. They covered those two great Slade songs, and Frankie was telling me, here's a trade-off. He goes. Quiet Riot got the fame covering those Slade tunes, but Slade, that was like pretty much, they were no longer in their prime and they long gone. Quiet Riot got the fame and Slade got all the money.
They didn't even want to I know Kevin didn't even want to record those songs.
Yeah. And
Kevin was like putting his foot down. He really didn't want to record. He didn't want to record "Mama, We're All Crazy Now." He didn't want to do it. And they said when he went in the studio to do that, he just like did it haphazardly because he didn't want it to come out good. And it came out. And Kevin was a great singer. Listen, that's one guy, and I always like to say this. That's one guy, Kevin DeBrow, who is so criminally underrated.
Oh yeah.
And we did a bunch of shows with him way back when, and he was such a cool guy. And but more than that, he was a great singer. That a lot of guys don't really put him up there when they say great hair metal singers. I never hear his name come up. I'm like, how can you not say Kevin DeBrow? He had the coolest metal rock voice. I mean, Metal Health is one of the coolest songs that come out of that era.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that is, I think a huge part of that is because of his attitude back in the day towards a lot of other bands. But the kind of the cool part of the story is that, before he died, he kind of changed his attitude, and he made up with a lot of people that he had dissed in the past. And I'd spoken to a guy personally who, him and Kevin had previously played together in early version of Quiet Riot, and he was telling me, I hated the guy, I couldn't stand him. Me and him, we didn't speak for years, but fortunately we made up right before he died. So I
played with him a bunch of shows, and he couldn't have been any cooler than me.
Yeah.
He sat and watched my whole set one time. We did a show with him, and he sat and watched. Literally, stood on the side of the stage and watched my whole set.
Wow.
And gave me thumbs up and clapping and pumping his fist and all that. And I was like, "This guy's great, man."
Wow. So Jim, I really enjoyed talking to you again. Now, before I let you go, the other thing I wanted to ask you is, I know you've already shot a couple videos for the London Fog album. Any chance that you'd be doing any videos for Gotcha Covered?
Yeah. It's funny you said that because me and Stefan were just talking about it yesterday. How we're doing a couple more videos for the for the London Fog album. We're picking a couple more songs to do. We're doing a couple lyric videos, and then for the Gotcha Covered, we're probably gonna do the Melisa Ethridge song. And we were thinking about doing maybe Hungry or one of those songs, or the Outlaw or something, or even 25 or 624 or something. But yeah, there's going to be a couple of videos for all this stuff. It just seems that videos really get people interested.
Yeah, and it's funny because MTV that actually played music videos back in the day, no longer do you see music videos on there. You see a lot of reality shows and stuff. But funny enough, a lot of guys like you, when you have a new album come out, you put your videos up on YouTube or even just on your Facebook page or your official website, and you guys get a lot of hits, amazingly, for the video. I think in many ways a lot of the record industry really screwed themselves, because there are many bands that don't even make these videos anymore, but guys like you are still doing it, and you get, that's how a lot of people discover you, and you get a lot of hits. So I think it's great that you continue to put out these great music videos.
Well, you can thank my executive producer, Steve Sussman, for that, because he's the one that really pushed to get videos involved. Yeah. We did the Passion video, and we did the Broken video, and I give a shout out to Steve for that, because Steve, he gets it. He understands. You gotta put this stuff out there. People in this day nowadays, people are just so fickle. When you're on Facebook, they just keep scrolling. If they see a video, they'll stop, watch it once, and then move forward. If you just put a song on there, they keep flying right past it. They're not even gonna look at it.
Yeah. But it's all about people joke about Gene Simmons being a self-promoting whore, but that's, in a way, that's what it's all about. If you're not gonna promote your stuff, how the hell can you expect anybody else to do it?
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, nowadays we laugh. When I'm out with the brothers, it's we're not musicians anymore. We're T-shirt and CD sales guys now.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of what you became. It's merch is the biggest thing nowadays. When you're out on tour, it's you make more money in the merch.
I remember interviewing once Bruce Killick, and he was a guitar player. He used to be in Kiss. He's in Grand Funk Railroad now, and he was telling me at the time that he was releasing a solo CD, and he's like, I'm actually, making these, doing these live events, and I'm actually, when people come, before the event, I'm selling some of these CDs out literally the back seat of my car.
It's so true.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
And then I got to ask you about, you're mentioning the Peace Brothers. Is that still that ongoing joke about no, it's a peace, no, it's apathy?
Well, yeah, they won't admit it, but I think that was
self-promotion, like we're talking about. Yeah. That's
so we're still talking about it, but they're just the best guys in the world. I love those guys. So.
Yeah, and well, Jim, I'd like to thank you. Like I said, I'm gonna talk to the guy that posts the stuff on the site, and we're gonna see if we can get the first part of the interview up maybe by this Friday. As soon as I get a confirmation on that, I'll be getting back to you. So be checking your Facebook in the next couple days for that. Okay.
Well, Jason, like I said, man, listen, I do a lot of these interviews, but it's really, and I'm truly sincere, it's a pleasure talking to you because you get it. You know, you're just a cool, down-to-earth guy, and you're easy to talk to, and I love giving you an interview, so you're always welcome.
Okay, well, yeah, and maybe when the live album comes out, we can do it again, but we'll get this posted first. You have a nice day, Jim, and we'll be in touch. Take care of yourself.
All right, Jay. See you, buddy.
Hey, bye-bye.